Have those opposed to a no-deal Brexit, have they got time to push through some sort of legislation to stop it? Because the window is very, very narrow now, isn't it?
It is. I think they do have time. MPs showed earlier this year that they could pass through a bill in a limited time. They essentially passed what became known as the Cooper Bill to put pressure on Theresa May to force to get an extension in 4 days. If we get prorogation between the 9th and the 12th, there is almost certainly going to be just about 4 days. There could be up to 6 days. So there is time. But I think overall, looking at this, what's clear is that Boris Johnson's government is trying to learn the lessons from Theresa May's experience and is prepared to take much more radical steps than Theresa May was prepared to. So I think it's very difficult to look at what happened in April, as some MPs are doing, and saying, we did it once, we can do it again. This is a fundamentally different set of circumstances with a very different government, which is clearly much more determined to deliver no deal than Theresa May was.
Terms like constitutional coup, undemocratic being bandied around. Let's be clear, Boris Johnson did have the right to suspend Parliament. That's what normally happens with a new government before they set out what they're going to do in the coming year. But it's normally a matter of days, not 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think prorogation is something that's constitutionally routine, but the extent to which it's routine or not depends entirely on the context. It's not really even about the length of time. If it was 1 day, but the context was that some major event would happen, then that would be really significant. So I think it's important to focus on exactly the timing is critical. And as you said, this is clearly a move, a strategic move to increase his chances of defeating the anti-no deal alliance in the Commons. But obviously that's a very unusual situation because you've got a majority of MPs against a no deal and a government that's pro-no deal. And in ordinary circumstances, a government like that just couldn't carry on. It would fall. But that's why I think everyone's right to say that the crisis is sort of getting worse. And we've been in a difficult situation with a government with a limited majority, and effectively not really a working majority when it comes to Brexit, for a long time. But now we're actually seeing that the crisis can actually get worse before it gets better.
And we haven't even touched on the European Union in all of this. Just to add into that sort of deadline leading up to the 31st of October, on the 17th of October, the EU leaders are having their Brexit summit. And that's just, 3 days, I think, after the British MPs actually get a chance to return to Parliament.
Absolutely. I think it's clear that Boris Johnson's strategy is that you need to keep no deal on the table at that last minute in order to get the EU to budge. And then also to increase the pressure on MPs that they might change position if there is a very limited time. But I think that is a massive gamble. And I think what's concerning for constitutional lawyers like myself is that this is really becoming a battle about more than just Brexit. It's about, different visions of democracy. And I think however much you might prefer one form of Brexit or another, I think it's very difficult to see that there's any real value in having a confrontation about, all these different forms of democracy at this crucial moment. I think that's quite worrying.
And just a final very quick point, something that people might not realise, we don't actually have a written constitution in the UK, do we?
No, exactly. I think we're finding out every day about the kind of anachronistic elements of the UK constitution, and prorogation and the role the Queen plays is just one example of that.
Indeed, it's very, very complicated. Jack Simson-Caird, thanks very much indeed. Well, Italy looks set to have a new government after a breakthrough in coalition talks.